There is one area of a Dungeons and Dragons game that does connect TSR additions to WotC that makes D&D and D&D like games like Pathfinder and OSR games separate from every other tabletop role-playing game on the market. Well, yes, and that is Dungeons and Dragons Combat. There are differences between every edition, from old school even up to the new school from WotC. Now, I have spent over 30 years running Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition Combat. It is quick, fast, smooth, fluent, doesn't take too long, but when it does, it's immersive if you play it outright, and fun. Rarely does a combat last a long time, like an hour. Now, as an old school Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master, I like that quick, fast pace of combat. I want it to be felt. I want you to be immersed in what is going on. Now, just so you know, I avoided all WotC editions of D&D. 3rd edition, 3.5, 4th edition, and from the time it came out 5th edition, for a very long time, I have never touched that. So, recently I ran 2 one-shots of 5e D&D. Why do I focus on combat in this video when it comes to Dungeons & Dragons? Well, look, every other area of D&D is done in similar ways in other tabletop role-playing games. Actually, the ways are sort of so generic, it's really not a unique thing that makes a D&D game a D&D game, So, what is the one thing that separates Dungeons & Dragons from every other tabletop role-playing game on the market? Like, what is the one core area? It is combat. So, in my opinion, getting that right is core to any game designer who is working on Dungeons & Dragons. Now, here is my issue with 5e Dungeons & Dragons. I find it to be overly complicated in unnecessary ways. I think there are many reasons for that, maybe to appease the customer and make more money. I get that. But it's overly complicated in unnecessary ways. The time it takes to finish most any average combat could be well over an hour or 2 hours. Oh, I imagine you can squeeze a little bit of time out of that and make it a bit shorter, but it can be very challenging to do that consistently. Well, you can do it over here, but how easy is that to apply to many of the combats? And you find, at least I find with things people do tell me, it's hard to throw that out. It's like, I get why that one encounter might be one you can shorten up, but that does not seem to be a consistent gimmick, and so a lot of combat seems to be unnecessarily long. My other issue is, it's not good long. It's not immersive combat. It's just long, tedious, move figurine miniatures on a board game, boring. Like, it's boring for me, but I'm told people like this, right? They enjoy this 5e combat for some reason, I guess, maybe. I'm trying to find what is good about it. I get the tricks. I get that, the monster can't do this to me because I get these 50 tricks to stop them. I'm like, yeah, but is what you're doing fun? Like, is it good? Is it worth doing? And can you do it in a way that would be enjoyable, where maybe you don't get all the tricks? I don't know. I am going to make adjustments to 5e as I'm running it going forward. I won't lie to you. I don't know how I'm going to, confront the newest stuff that is coming out, like all the new content, the new player's handbook, and everything else. I'm thinking that over. I mean, this is why I don't want to rush into doing 5e content until September, because It's now that I made that decision, I really got to make sure I know what I'm doing to, put out something that you guys actually want as it relates to 5e, and come at 5e in a way that I want. I'm just not sure exactly how. I do know that I will be adjusting some parts of the game. I'm going to warn that to people that might want to play 5e with me in the future. I'm not going to make it 2nd edition. Don't worry about that. There's elements that I understand that seem core to 5e, and I'm going to negotiate with people about making some adjustments to combat, because it's just, I don't get it. The game is made for the combat, but it has to be something good. Right. I get that at the start of combat, moments within it, people can get excited. They can turn off for a second, but that is not what I call immersive. Immersive is you're in, over the top, focused, excited, literally every second of the fight until the fight is over. That is where I'm looking to get. Not having these moments I can talk about later, because a lot of people like to tell you these colorful stories about their gaming sessions, right? I like the gaming session to be the exciting part, and maybe I tell you the story about the session and it's boring, but I don't care, because the exciting part was done in gameplay. Not that I was bored most of the combat scene and then I did that cool thing and we talk about it later, and then we pretend somehow that whole thing was a fun package. It wasn't. It was boring most of the time. You did your hot thing. It's just the way you're going to remember it. That's been my experience with a lot of people that play 5e. I'm like, is the combat exciting, start to finish? And I'm like, it's not for me. And I'm noticing it's not for the people playing the game that want to play 5e. And I'm not running it wrong. These are people that have all played 5e under veteran 5e DMs. So they're all people that can put me on check, and I wanted to do that with the one-shots because I'm trying to learn. And I did a great job. It was terribly slow. And I don't know, maybe 5e people are used to this, and that is why they accept it. I don't know. But to me, to do combat well in Dungeons and Dragons it's necessary. Here's my issue with WotC combat. To me, D&D starts off as simplified, easy combat. It's not meant to be perfect. There is no perfect math that will match up with how the dice roll out that night. Look, it's like anything. You can't get perfect, but you're gambling to get something close to it, right? And the closer you can stay to that, the better off the game is, right? Now, if you can advance that and keep that going in that percentage range where you're closer to something that you can't achieve, but it's like you're still aiming for it because you want the best, right? And since you can't get perfect, that means the best. The only thing that's going to be, better than that is something that isn't going to be perfect, but it will be the best, right? So in D&D, you might want to advance that to sell, to make more money, to put more ideas in, but you got to be careful. Because as you're raising it up, you're starting to bring new imbalancing, where it's like, okay, we used to be pretty good on 90% of combat and way things turned out during gameplay. Now, things only turn out at 70%. And so you can start affecting the game, the overall experience for players, getting into the new edition, and that's obviously really important. It's like cops and robbers, right? As the cops get new tools and advance, well, the robbers have to overcome them, right? So they got to advance, but then they'll advance to overcome them. So, okay, cops then advance to overcome them, but here's the issue. It's a constant, massive imbalancing of combat, where you start noticing the amount of real fair down the middle combat where it might have been this or might have been that. Those are few and far between, and most of the combats start turning into either you walk over the enemy or there's a total party kill. Because you've added just so many fucking layers on, the idea of knowing what 2 layers would get them closer to where you want them, that's gone. Like, WotC has gone too far, and they made too many mistakes and tried to put bandages on it and tried to duct tape things, and it just, you had to sort of go back to the core and start over. That was the issue with combat for WotC D&D, in my opinion, and that's why we get to this convoluted combat that you have now, that no matter how good it is written on paper, no matter how cool the ideas seem, or the one or two moments that might be, I guess, somewhat exciting during the 2 hours that you can talk about later, that's just not good enough. Well, not good enough for me. And maybe there is a difference in taste here. Maybe there's a lot of people out there that really like really slow-paced combat. Maybe there's a lot of people out there that are okay with constantly winning without really being challenged, or they accept the idea that under those conditions, there might be a total party kill at any moment. I mean, hey, I can be open-minded. I can try to adjust some of that if I really do find the player base is into that, I guess. But I will still make changes, because overall, what is on offer right now, just on the core, I mean, forget all the optional stuff later, just the fucking core of 5e, no, not good. And I've been told by a lot of people from the old school that the core was good, but I'm like, the only thing that matters about a Dungeons and Dragons game is combat. So if you're telling me it's okay, that means the combat is okay. Or you're unaware of the reality of this, and I had to sort of clarify you on the reality that D&D is really based, if you want to understand what Dungeons and Dragons is, on the combat, right? Because every other element can be done in every other tabletop role-playing game, so it is the one area that is going to separate a D&D game or a D&D-like game from every other game on the fucking market. So no 5e at the core. If you don't like what I just described to you as combat for a Dungeons and Dragons game, then no, the core 5e game is not good and needs to be adjusted to get better results. Like, I don't care how the game performs in any other area. I can perform in all those areas quickly with almost no rules anyway. So you're not really going to improve socializing, interacting, all these things, or even performing skills. Either just not mass areas. Like, it's easy to get those to run right. You don't get to credit D&D with pulling that off in any sacred, unique, improved way. So the only thing you have left to judge any D&D game on if it's good or not is if the combat in the game is good. And if it is not, that Dungeons and Dragons game has failed. Period. Fact. End of story. Not up for debate. And in my opinion, that makes 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons the best edition ever made for Dungeons and Dragons, period. I don't care if it's TSR or WotC, this 2nd edition AD&D is the best edition to ever be made and put out there on the market. It is the one that produces the best Dungeon Masters and produces a system to allow that Dungeon Master to run the best combat, in any D&D game. That's my opinion. I'm going to bring that knowledge, experience, that wisdom from 2nd edition and my 30 plus years doing that into 5e and see what I can do with that. And I hope people are not going to be mad at me. I hope quite the opposite. I hope they're excited to see a guy who's going to respect the fact that they want something different than 2nd edition. They like their 5e, but someone who understands there's some principles and elements that can improve the thing that they like instead of changing it and trying to make it something it's not. So what I'm going to do is try to improve this fucking thing without making it something you wouldn't recognize in a certain way. It's going to be recognizable, but oh man, that works better. That is my goal with 5e. Anyway, for now, take care.